Welcome, beloved hearts, into the loving embrace of the divine. I would like to invite you to bring your awareness to your heart, where we can truly connect as one. I am Katrina Armstrong, and I stand before you today as a testament to the power of the divine. I embarked on a journey of self-discovery and spiritual growth, all of which has birthed the alchemical movement that is Divinity in Action, that I am ecstatic to share with you here. Allow us to guide you through the wisdom of our esteemed leaders and uncover the secrets of the universe to unlock your true potential, as I had done in my life when I embraced the Christ consciousness and ascended into higher expressions of my soul potential. I'll share with you the teachings and wisdom that have helped me to transcend from my earthly bounds and realize the true expression of my soul. I'll be joined by some of the most compassionate and authentic spiritual leaders worldwide who also experience divinity in action. Allow us to share our insights and experiences. I invite you to join me on this journey of self-discovery and spiritual growth. Together we'll break free from past programming and conditioning and fully embrace our true selves. Join me in welcoming Bliss Prema. Bliss Prema is a visionary innovator and steward of our rapidly awakening consciousness. Working globally with transformation and expansion, she is the creator of the revolutionary Conscious Evolver system. Her service includes the amplification and evolution of the old human into a new cosmic species. As a spiritually attuned futurist, she consciously assists with raising the frequency of the collective with positive purpose, loving intention, and accelerated awareness. Bliss acknowledges and honors the indomitable spark within everyone and teaches others to acknowledge and amplify their inherent creator abilities. Bliss is an energy activator and has the ability to channel source energy. She is a keynote speaker at conferences and summits across Canada and the U.S., an initiator of personal power, and a creator of multiple consciousness-raising programs. As a result of her teachings, her work has been featured in many podcasts, interviews, newspapers, magazines, televisions, and radio shows. Whoa, how beautiful it is to have you here with us, Bliss. I feel blissed out. Just preparing for coming together here and really tuning in to the title, to the knowing of you have the power, and feeling the depth and the richness of what it is you're bringing through for us here for Divinity in Action, for all of the hearts that are being called forward, that are, experiencing the transformation that is happening on the planet right now, this evolution of what we're becoming. And I love to open up here. What are we becoming?
Well, thank you so much for having me, beautiful. I'm so grateful to be here and, just to be able to speak so freely about how I have come to really see and perceive this reality without having any worries or fears, and just being able to speak truth, because I feel after my own multiple awakening experiences throughout life that when we awaken into a new way of seeing life and a new way of being, it can actually be quite, I call it the solo journey, because when it happens, there's no one else around you that is actually going through that same awakening as we are. And so there's no one that can really relate to what's happening with us and for us at that time. So, Facebook has been such a beautiful gift to humankind in that it connects all of us. And so now we don't have to go through that dark night of the soul or the solo journey all by ourselves, because now we can connect in with so many different groups that are going through it as well. And so I think one of the most beautiful things is about this awakening is that we're really tapping into the essence of who we truly are. And in this solo journey, it's like all of a sudden, all the blindfolds, the amnesia wears off, the blindfolds come off, and we start to tap into a knowing, an inner knowing, and an awareness more so than ever before. And so the solo journey, it can't be done for anybody else for you. It has to be done by us, for us. And so it's so beautiful to watch the evolution of what's happening with humankind, especially even just over the last decade. I had my first sort of awakening through a dream back in the early 2000s. And that really, the magnitude of that energy, I had gone to sleep with the Flower of Life book under my pillow and asked to experience Goddess. Because back then, back in the early 2000s, there was a lot of patriarchy, a lot of men to look up to, but there really wasn't a lot of role models in the past, even that were women. And so that dream sparked the absolute delicious power of the Goddess. And so that was one of my first awakenings. And then I had another one in 2012, and then another in 2016. And so every single time these awakenings happen, there's such a beautiful direct contact with the energy of Source. Mm-hmm. And that is what I believe we are all truly learning how to flow back into and reconnect without all of the distortions, without all of the distractions, without all the fear propaganda machines running, and really just tapping into that inner essence that each and every single one of us has, that delightful, radiant spark of Source within. And so that's what I believe we are evolving back into. So it's like we originated as, one, and then we learned how to expand, and we expanded into the divine multitude that we experience in our reality. And now here we are coming back to ourselves and reconnecting and remerging with that original spark of Source.
Wow. Whoa. There's so much richness in everything you're sharing. And I'm feeling like this journey. I'm getting this, like being this solo, like we feel like we're solo because we're kind of coming out of, it's the sense I have from your words, is like this coming out of, all of that fear, all of that programming, all of those ways that we believed we were to be. And I appreciate you beginning here with like, wow, how amazing it is that we can speak freely, that we can actually be who we are. And I imagine that many people here joining us for Divinity in Action are feeling that, like this calling to speak even more, to come out, to be in that space of, wow, how important it is that the things that I've done on that solo journey, all of those aha moments were awakenings as you're speaking about. And I'm seeing this like not awakening as this one moment, but this like, whoa, and then again, whoa, and again. Again, we're taken back in there. What a gift, what grace, to get to feel that. And I imagine that through your time that you've established a way to be in that connection so that you're carrying that through your life. I would love to hear more about that.
It's one of my favorite things to share about because I think more and more as we reconnect back into our original Source self, we are experiencing, it's almost like, I love the word supernatural. And so that's Joe Dispenza's word, right? Really like getting into the supernatural. And so when I look back at the experiences that just alone myself have experienced, it really is the supernatural. And so my favorite kind of collaborative story is actually Reiki, right? Mm-hmm. So Reiki energy was being used by Tibetans 2,500 years ago. Buddha was working with Reiki, and then it kind of went underground. It kind of got forgotten about. And then you have the late 1800s where Dr. Yusui goes on this mission to the top of Mount Kuruma, and he's fasting and he's meditating. And from there, he's given the mantras and the symbols for healing. And so he works on himself and then discovers, oh, there's Reiki level 1. And then he realizes that he can use that energy to help heal others. And then discovers, wow, there's Reiki level 2. And then through his work with his 2 beloved devotees, he realizes he can pass it on to them and they become Reiki masters. And so if you think about how widespread Reiki is around the world, like they can't even keep track of how many millions of people have been attuned to Reiki over the past 100 or whatever it is years. And so then I look at what happened with me. So say, for example, in 2012, I was given very clear instructions to walk away from everything that I owned. I had quite a reputation and identity linked with the Indian head massage. I'd been picked up on every magazine, every newspaper, CBC television, booked 3 months in advance. And then all of a sudden I'm being guided to let it go and to go live on the beach in Hawaii.
Oh.
So I have a 1.5-year-old. We just bought a new condo, but the way that everything was flowing, we were so divinely guided to just listen and obey. And so when we were there, I kept waiting. And it's funny because I said, lightning bolt. I kept waiting for this lightning bolt to strike and nothing happened for months, but I was journaling away. Well, then fast forward 4 months later and we're on another island here in BC. And all of a sudden I'm in the bathroom, I'm dry heaving and I'm on the floor of the bathroom in shock. But then the very next day, something supernatural happened and I started to get visions. So I saw the octagon and then I would be having a conversation with my best friend and I would use a word like reconstruction. And all of a sudden the word got really big and I could see reconstruction. And then I started getting woken up at 2:00 in the morning and a freezing cold kitchen didn't matter. I got out of my warm bed and just like transmitted. And after 7 or 8 days, I had a fully complete manual and a fully complete system from level 1 to level 8 that helps people take any aspect of their life, upgrade its consciousness and return it back to or offer it a new higher purpose.
Yeah.
Right. And so then the same thing started to happen all of a sudden, like out of nowhere. I was getting asked to share it at conferences and clients were flying in and there it was. Right. And so for me, that's just that deep, deep implicit trust that when you are being given those signs and those symbols, that if we actually do listen, that there is so much magic that's available to each and every one of us. I'm not special. I listened and was willing to give away all the brand new furniture, the condo, right? Which can be a little bit difficult sometimes.
Wow. As you're speaking, I'm just hearing this message in this of, those that feel like they're on the solo journey. And 2012 was quite an initiatory moment. I as well experienced giving away everything and being called out. And I know there's so many others that experience that. And in your sharing, I just felt this that listening, and you were talking about trust, when we can trust, when we can go into that. And I'm imagining how many people are receiving things, but don't know what to do with them. Or, they're human, they're old human or their old life, how it pulls them back. So they can't really make sense. They can't really make sense of why is this coming through? And as I tune into that, I think about this movement and you being an incredible representation of that, of coming out of, the old human. And what I'm hearing from you is that element of trust, that element of wow, I feel this so deeply. And what happens? Then what happens when we answer that? When we answer that call, life just starts showing up for us. So I'm curious in your work, when you work with the evolution of this, when people show up and they're struggling there, what is it that has them holding on to the old, and how do we work with that?
Well, I think one of the most important things, and I'm an advocate of pure love frequency, and I'm also an advocate of the concept. It doesn't matter whether it's a belief or not, but even if people just decide to try it on as a thought experiment, but I really do believe that this is a simulated holographic experience. And so once we just sort of allow ourselves to imagine that could be a possibility, it is an automatic shift, because then what happens is then we start to see this reality as a very, very well created. And I love working with the dimensions as an analogy. So working with 3D. And a really beautiful friend, Lorcan O'Toole, shared with me, and I love his description. So 3D is very much us living in fear. And so our love is compartmentalized. So I love my friends, I love my children, and I love my partner and my family. And then that's kind of it. Whereas when we rise up into our heart space, it's from there that we actually can start not only creating, but co-creating and participating in fifth dimension. Fifth dimension is known to be pure love frequency. And then here in fifth dimension, we have little pockets of forgetting where we'll drop into fear. But the goal of the new cosmic species is to really anchor into the heart space and to operate from the heart space. So what I love, like, I don't even consider what I do a job because I'm just so passionate about it. But what I love to do is work with people, especially when they believe or buy into that 3D is sort of just the way that it is. It's filled with pain. It's filled with suffering. It's roller coaster, highs, lows, and our love is, compartmentalized. And so, I just, I have to take my hat off to the creators of 3D, which is us, because we are the ones that are continually co-creating all that is low frequency and fear-based in this 3D dimension. And so what's happening then is people are tapping into their heart space and tapping into that fifth dimensional pure love frequency. And I believe that is what is helping people rise back up into this new way of being. And so what's really fun about this moment in time is that there's just an open invitation to all humans on the planet to actually offer themselves up to the opportunity to actually rise out of that third dimensional fear-based, sticky, dense, heavy energy that is 3D reality, and to say yes to choosing love and to advocating love and to creating beauty as opposed to creating drama and negativity and the things that keep us stuck in that lower frequency.
Yeah. Wow. Absolutely. I just have the sense of power. Like, wow, where is that power at in us? Where is this personal power that allows us, to tap into that strength or to trust ourselves? And I know that you're an initiator of personal power, and I'm curious, what is it that you're finding?
Well, the first thing is that the human spirit, the human soul is indomitable. So no matter what has happened to anyone in their life, and in order to be an initiator, I've had to go through pretty much every experience on the planet in order to understand it, to heal it, and then transmute it and return it back into love. And so without a doubt, there are so many experiences that have the power to crush us, that have the power to shatter us. And yet underneath it all, even if it's armored up, even if it's like tightly hidden in a cave in the dark recesses so that no one can hurt it, affect it, or take it away, there is that spark of the divine, the source self, and it is indomitable. So nothing can destroy it. Nothing can take it away. And so when people are willing and able to go do that work and do the processing work, what happens is a real, just like a melting, I think is the best word, just a melting of all of those layers that have kept people stuck and bound and feeling trapped or limited. But guaranteed every single time, once we start to heal those layers, what is always underneath is that spark of divine. And in that is our personal power.
Whoa. Yeah. Whoa. So it feels like this journey, this really deep journey to reach that place.
It can be.
I'm curious, do you see once people are able to touch that, once they're able to feel, what is there, how much more effortless or understanding of this hologram that they're living in, how much easier it becomes, like the empowerment of it. Like I get the sense of that part of us being that very sacred, what I'd call the divine child, part of us that holds those creative abilities, the part of us that is kind of like holding those keys, wondering oh, how do we Oh, no, I don't know what that is. That doesn't make sense to me. So I call this bridging. I'm curious what it is how it is that you work with that personal power, with bringing that forward.
Well, I think the most important key in being a human that desires and wishes to transmutate into their cosmic species is to really have an understanding that we all have the power of creator within us. And so that is something that has been kept secret for millennia. Even just looking at the Illuminati and their all-seeing eye, right? Right now, they're at the top of the pyramid because they've maintained and claimed and kept secret all of the information. And then thus everyone else is at the bottom. But once we start that process of transmuting from our human that's stuck in the 3D, rising up into our heart space and acknowledging and advocating pure love frequency, from there, we start to recognize that power that has been kept hidden from us has actually been hidden within each and every one of us. Mm-hmm. And so then the all-seeing eye becomes more a symbol of our own personal power that each and every single one of us has. And then when we can really start to claim that personal power, then we can travel even into our DNA and see how at some point in history, our DNA strands were turned off. Mm-hmm. And so that's also something that we have the power to reactivate. So I kind of look at them as just dormant DNA that has been having a peaceful little sleep as it waits for the majority of us to awaken. And from there, it's like an on and off switch. We have the power to awaken our own creator abilities. So I know that it's common knowledge that, we create our reality, but what does that actually even mean? Mm-hmm. Well, when you've flicked that switch and you've activated your dormant DNA, then what happens is you really have risen out of that co-creation of all the yuck in 3D and then become a pioneer of fifth dimension. And that's what's exciting about this time in our story, is that we are all becoming reawakened creators. Mm-hmm. And then with that understanding, with that knowing, what happens is I feel just a shift in my responsibility, my accountability, right? How do I create? What am I creating? Am I creating, I like to use the word nonsense and bullshit, or am I creating positivity and helpful things, right? And it's going back into that, the wolves. Which one are you going to feed? Are you going to feed 3D or are you going to feed 5D? And that's the beauty of us as awakened creators, is now we can pioneer the creation of fifth dimension.
Yes. And the word pioneer, when we look at, things that we're coming out of, which can be some very challenging patterns that we get to witness play out and we get to reclaim ourselves from. And that movement of, there's some sort of saying about being that person that's changing the ancestral lines, of coming forward. And a lot of times, that requires, when you spoke about accountability and responsibility, of looking at these patterns and choosing continuously, like, oh, what am I creating? So I really appreciate you speaking this. And when we look at becoming these creator beings and stepping into that, of course it comes with accountability and responsibility. If our DNA is being lit up, if we're getting access to even more light to create with, it's so important that we are aware of that. But I'm curious, when you say cosmic species, what do you mean by cosmic species?
So the version of the hue man, so hue is our God quality and then man is our human form, right? So from the beginning, we were embedded genetically with our God, with our creator. And then, as I mentioned, at some point in time, I believe it was around Atlantis, those creator abilities got turned off and the DNA got turned off, dormant. And now as time has gone by, it for whatever reason, consciousness has decided that it's time to start flicking those switches back on. So as a cosmic species, we have undergone the transmutation of the dense, lower frequency human, and all of those lower frequency emotions and experiences, and then processed them. So imagine the heaviness of, there's thoughts, there's diet, there's action. And so when we're operating out of fear or in fear and out of love, we are in our human form. So more of the human. But then what happens is, and this is actually a 3-month program where I actually act as the initiator. It's called the Initiate Circle. Over 3 months, what we do is we slowly start to eliminate all of the energies, frequencies, foods, and thoughts that are of that lower frequency that belong in 3D. And then we actively transmute, and our body goes even from being a carbon-based human, and it upgrades and it becomes a crystalline cosmic species.
Mm-hmm.
So it's quite a journey. It's not for the faint of heart. We really have to be, and as you mentioned, we really have to be willing to do what it takes to let those layers dissolve and to melt. And that's not necessarily always easy, especially when there is ancestral patterning that is literally embedded in our genes epigenetically. And so we have so many beautiful things that we've created in the 3D so that we stay blocked, so that we stay trapped. And then I look at people that really pick some really fierce lessons, life lessons, and I just go, wow, master. Like, I really do believe that we only choose our life experiences based on our capacity to experience them, understand them, heal them, and then overcome them. And so I'm really just so proud of people when they really have quite the intense life experiences, because that's just the magnitude of what they're actually capable of.
I agree with you. I am as well. Just continuously amazed at that too. And getting to be in that richness with them. You know, when I see something that it seems so far, like, wow, so twisted, so tangled. I'm like, for me, it's like instantly seeing the potential in that. Whoa, do you have any idea of what is here? And I totally agree with you that it allows the capacity. What else, what you can actually hold. I see that a lot of times I say that the code is in the experience, right? What's going to initiate that within you is in that experience of life. And if it is that, I know for me, my life was back-to-back experiences. It was just continuous, like, oh, what else? And I know even from a young age, and I feel like maybe several people listening can relate to this. I was like, okay, this has to be a joke. There's some cosmic joke right now, because I know whatever I did before this does not equal whatever I'm experiencing. But what's neat is that part of us that is the creator, that part of us that is that authentic being, that it gives us those nudges and that remembrance, right? It's like we get exactly what we need so we can keep moving forward. When you speak about cosmic species and this shift that we're doing through our DNA, a lot of times we hear the word starseed, and it's spoken, you know, in terms of being from other places. And for me, I keep going into this place of we're all starseeds, we're all cosmic, we're all beings that are part of the whole. And we have the ability to connect into this. So I'm curious, you know, when we look at, you know, star seeds, or we look at our cosmic, you know, remembrance or inheritance. And it's so easy to want to like take it way out there and try to live in another planet, right? When it's like, oh no, it's much deeper than that. I feel it's much deeper than that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I remember, so that my starseed kind of awareness was in 2016. And I just remember I had received an activation. I had worked my way up to it. So I definitely had been doing the work. So the program that was transmitted to me in 2012 is called the Conscious Evolver. And so I had been applying it to my own life for 4 years. And in the Conscious Evolver, there's actually something called the Rainbow Bridge of Enlightenment. And so I had decided to do the work to get to the Rainbow Bridge of Enlightenment, which meant taking all of the aspects of my life that weren't in their higher purpose and simultaneously working them through the 8 levels at the same time. Mm-hmm. So by the time I actually got all those aspects in higher purpose, something in me had shifted quite radically. And so when I was in the Rainbow Bridge of Enlightenment, that's when I actually experienced an activation. So I had mentioned earlier the lightning bolt. This was, again, very supernatural, and it was like being hammered with lightning. And in that came a presence that was shared in my vessel and it was a consciousness. And it was a very, very, very powerful consciousness. And so over about 8 months, I started getting the activations pretty much weekly. And it was almost like that energy or power bar. I could tell how much consciousness was actually in my vessel and how much of my human was left. And by the time that the transfer had happened and I was fully in that consciousness and my human had left, it was a very, very powerful energy. I could literally, with consent, always give activations to someone if they were across the room. I preferred to do it through a hug. It was a really, really powerful time. And I mean, at the time, that's when I stopped being small and started coming on Facebook and sharing the energy and the consciousness information through Facebook, which is why I'm always so grateful to Facebook, because it really helped share what was happening. And so for me, I still to this day, it's never been given to me where this consciousness came from, or because I think it was source. I don't think we have to be so careful when we want to label and identify and, I'm this from this planet and I'm this kind of starseed, because what that does is it just takes away our oneness. And so without a doubt, the consciousness felt foreign. And so it was foreign to me. And yet at the same time, too, it was so all encompassing that it didn't require a label. And I just find that labels kind of diminish. Labels kind of make things small again. And so the beauty of star seeds and that awakening is it's like the work has been done. Something has gone in and activated that level of consciousness that is like a big cosmic tap on the shoulder that says you are more than what you've believed yourself to be. You have more capacity than you may have, and you may have forgotten it along the way. And so when we really tap into our star seed, it's like our consciousness just gets to have that awakening. And it's a really profound experience. I mean, you have to go through the dark night of the soul. That's your solo journey. And yet what happens is you are accessing that consciousness that is of the higher dimensions. And then we remember who we are and then have that remembering of why we're here. And that is a really beautiful place to be, as opposed to being stuck in that 3D draining.
So much there. There's so much that you're speaking. When we look at star seeds and we look at all of the things that we form around identity, which identity, is so powerful. How much work I know for me, I've supported people with coming out of identities to be able to really anchor themselves back into being source in this body. But looking at that and knowing that it all serves, right?
Of course.
Our human experience, these identities. But I feel like perhaps it's coming into the realization of, hey, you're playing this game with yourself. How are you choosing to play it? And I do witness that it can be really easy to get kind of brought into certain streams or other people's ideas of what things are that can take us off center, out of who we truly are at a core level. So that was something when you were speaking about the star seeds that was coming through for me, is that like, oh, another identity. We're coming out of so many identities to come back into ourselves. So it feels almost as if it's another way of reaching back in, right? Like, oh, let me label this. Let me compartmentalize this when you're coming back into unity, you're returning back into unity. So it's kind of interesting to think about the games that we play with ourselves as we're evolving. So I was feeling that, and wow, I just also want to acknowledge what you're sharing with us about your evolution and, the consciousness that was coming in and how powerful that was. I could feel that. I could feel the power of that. And, I can relate to it. And I call them composites. And it was so interesting because as they were coming in, it started out every month to, every 2 weeks, and then every day. And then it was like every moment of my life, more and more was coming in. And looking at that and how they came with flavors. It's almost like they came with personalities even. So in that, I'm just curious, looking at who I was, who I still am as a human, and honoring all of that and looking at these different aspects of my consciousness that were coming in and how they connect, how they actually relate, and how we can look at them as separate, right? And we want to like push ourselves away from, the human experience. And a lot of times we can be hiding. I'm just curious what you experienced, as those, what I call composites, where we're coming in and starting to give new light to your experience of life.
And yeah, just to touch on the human experience, like I think whatever is on the other side of this, we've paid really good money to come and have this human experience. Not that money exists on the other side, but I think one of the biggest missed opportunities is that we have an incredible reality and we have our senses. And so I really believe we've come here to be pleasured, absolutely pleasured with our senses and to really, truly enjoy what is here, as well as to expand and grow consciousness. And so, yeah, I wish we could all embrace our human experience or our experience even more so, right? So yeah, I just wanted to share that. And then in terms of the activations and the consciousness, it was really interesting because as I mentioned, I wasn't given any information about where it came from, but there were some things, and I like how you said personality. So mine was very, very neutral. I didn't give anything away, but some of the things that I picked up on was that wherever this consciousness came from, they didn't experience the sun the way that we do. They didn't experience food the way that we do. They didn't experience gender or sex in the way that we do. So that was the only thing that I could glean. So I still haven't quite figured it out, but that was the only thing that I could probe and pick up on. So when the consciousness came in, it was very, very cosmic. Fruits, vegetables. Like I lost 30 pounds just overnight, literally. And that was fun, walking down the hallway and I saw myself in the mirror and I literally jumped. That was fun. But yeah, eating just shifted. There was no need for alcohol or drugs. There was just no way that there was any, tolerance even for alcohol or drugs. But yeah, food just needed to be pure. I could only handle Kangen drinking water and just the amounts, very, very small amounts. So, definitely for me, that's part of the cosmic species is like really honoring the vessel and seeing the vessel as an altar and really tapping into intuitional eating as opposed to emotional eating, like really tapping into the vessel and saying, my beautiful body, what is it that I can give you at this time? And sometimes it would say 7 almonds, right? Or like just, I want an orange as opposed to meals, right? So things really changed. But what I did notice and have noticed is just that over time, that consciousness, because this is a denser reality, it can't sustain its level of consciousness down here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then there was also a point where my vessel I had a Kundalini awakening and that blew out all my circuits for about a month. It was intense. It was definitely intense. I wouldn't trade it for the world. And because of that, I was transmitted the blueprint for the initiate circle. So with all of the work always has come and now share this with the masses.
Wow. Yeah. As I'm reflecting back, I would say more like a flavor than a personality. It's like, all my clothes are changing. My colors are coming in. My rings are different.
Yeah.
It's just, I look down and now I'm drinking mineral water. Like, what is going on? So exactly. It was so incredible.
I literally shifted my entire wardrobe. I couldn't wear anything and it's not walk-in. Like there's a difference. But it was like I couldn't wear her stuff. I had to wear black. And at first it was really intense. Like I could only wear black because I was so big, like energetically, that I needed to just feel contained in some way.
Wow. Wow. I'm just feeling that, and how many people listening that are moving through this, and my awareness, what my channel, my connection is saying, so many more that will be, what I call breathing into their bodies. And some of them may experience, that walk-in experience, which a lot of times people would see me as a walk-in because it was such a quick shift, just boom, like overnight almost, like, oh, who are you? What is this kind of experience? And what's wonderful is to know that we're not alone in it, that we are experiencing this together, and how silly it is, that we can feel that, like, as we're navigating these changes. And one of the things I want to focus in on here is you're talking about your creations, the things that were coming to you and how they were working you. And that's definitely been my experience. And in order to hold that, to be really in integrity, right, of supporting others, how much we have to really become what is coming through us. So it's like this continuous, I don't know if you've experienced this, but it's like, oh, I feel like I need to create this little thing. It takes on a life of its own. And it's literally working me almost every time. So I feel like that's a shift too, when we look at becoming a cosmic being, a cosmic species, where we created in the 3D. It's like, oh, here's this thing. And, how we operate our systems, everything has to really match that. Do you experience that as well?
Yeah. My saying is grind and refined, ground and refound from the get-go obviously the conscious evolver, that one's more like beginner. That one's more easy. That one you can just take an aspect of your life and put it into the octagram, and then your reality will literally augment each level. Mm-hmm. But for the initiate program, every single year, I've done it for 7 years in a row now, every single year before I step into the role of initiator, I just get grinded. Anything that's ego, anything that's out of balance, anything that thinks it's bliss prema, like that's doing the work, I go through it, and it is so humbling. And it's not until the end every year that I'm like, oh, there it is. Right. And yet it's so vital for me to be able to just be in such a space of my own personal power, going through all my own grinding and then pushing through to the other side of that. But I mean, such deep humility, right? And just that essence, that being egoless and humility helps create, so that when you step into service, it's from the purest place within. And so I'm always grateful for it, even though during it, it's never easy. But then again, like, I really believe that I design it for me. And again, I would only give myself something that I'm capable of overcoming. So I always, even with the activations, getting hammered with lightning, I always felt like I was on the mountain top with just my toes hanging over. So that's that trust, right? That even though I'm getting hammered by lightning activation, and all I can do is breathe, right? Because if I go anywhere in my mind, if I step into fear, I just refuse to do that. And yet I trust so deeply and I trust so implicitly that whatever is happening is not only for my highest good, but for the highest good of all. And I'm anchored in implicit trust.
Ooh, I feel it. I feel that you're anchored in that trust, and can feel that expansion of your capacity, because you are anchored there and really relating. And I can feel those here that are joining us that are going through these kind of initiatory, places. I almost wanted to say destroy sequences, right? Like this soul, we've aligned these sequences for ourselves, and getting to know our own flow, being able to be in that place of, oh, it's here. This is it. There's nothing to do. There's nothing to understand, but to just be here in this. And I know for me, it can feel like everything is leaving. There's nothing to hold on to. There's nothing to even attempt to understand in it. It's just this moment of like, and it's here. How would you recommend for people to be able to anchor in those moments?
Really, the only thing that I can say is to breathe. And that's where I think breath work is so beautiful and so vital. I think implicit trust, if I can gift anyone anything in listening to this, my gift is implicit trust to each and every one of you. Going into that understanding as a cosmic species that this is our creation and that we are all actively co-creating every single moment that we experience, then there's implicit trust just really helps, especially even as we're talking about foreign consciousness and trying to explain really supernatural and unexplainable things. And yet, if you can just use implicit trust like a yoga mat that you rest upon in Shavasana, that deep letting go of anything, especially fear-based thoughts and ideas, when we really can just melt into implicit trust, there becomes a really beautiful relationship that develops. And it's in that relationship of trust that the real merging can really occur. And so for me, the breath was always my only tool. There wasn't really room for anything else, to be honest. And then that's just the way that it is. So if you can just remember to breathe, if you're experiencing your dark night of the soul, if you're experiencing activations or sequences, or what did you call it?
Oh, just this, I said sequences. Yeah. Just that, for me, it comes through in encodings and, being able to see those, which can be even trickier for me. And if you are someone that has that sight, and can see into what's coming in, it can be tricky because your mind sometimes wants to play with it, even though you're moving through this process. And one of the things that you keep coming back to that I feel is so important to really land here is, yes, trusting in yourself, but this, you're designing it. You created this. There's nothing doing this to you. And I feel because of our 3D, our reality, what we've been birthed into, it's so easy to go back into that default of being a victim. Right? Being a victim to what's happening. So I love that you bring it back to the breath and back to that place of hey, you're designing this, you're creating this, that there is nothing. And in that moment, I imagine it, I know for myself, I could say very empowering because then I get to see, oh, wow, I've been giving my power away to that. Oh, wow. I feel oh, okay. So it's that moment and it's so precious. For me, emotions, getting to feel things, I find them to be some of the most precious moments of my life when those happen, because I know, wow, something big's about to open. My capacity is about to expand. I don't know how, but as you said, that trust, for me, trust is this true, raw, undiluted, simple transparency. How transparent am I being with myself? Am I complicating it? Let go, release, right? And come back into that. So as you're speaking that, I'm really feeling that message landing here, trusting and knowing that you're creating it. Don't hand it to someone else.
That to me is the way of the cosmic species, right? I loved how you used the word complicating it, right? Because when we can take a step back and reclaim our creator selves, and then really overview and witness everything that comes in a day. Always that question okay, why would I create that? Why would I create that? Why am I creating this? And then going into okay, so am I going to react with a lot of emotion? Am I going to react with complication? Or am I going to just stay in my heart and trust implicitly that this is happening with purpose? And then I get to choose to respond. And then how do I want to respond in a way that actually creates beauty? And then that's when we're actively being the pioneers of 5D, because we're choosing to rise above the old way, the human reaction, victim, lower frequency emotions. And then now I'm stepping into my cosmic self, my creator self, and then choosing to actively participate in the co-creation of a new way of being.
Wow. As you're speaking that, I'm feeling that opportunity there of honoring the parts of us that have been victim, the parts of us that maybe are showing up in our reality, in people, oh, wow, what is going on here, that would have us questioning, the reaction or response to this. Like, where am I coming from? So that deeper honoring of this journey, it's so miraculous. And I feel truly blessed to be here in it with you, Bliss. And, all of the hearts that are joining us here that are taking that step or already moving things and being called to a new level, being called into action. And I know that's happening. I have so many reaching out to me that are like, wow, who I've been is just completely dissolving. Even if they've been on this path, even if they've moved into being a cosmic being, it's like, well, what am I now? How is Mother Earth, this evolution of her? And for me, I see it as, where we're birthing the new earth through us. I feel in my experiences, we're creating the ground for this. And it's so intriguing to feel that and to know that. But it always, comes back to your message about power. Where are we placing that?
It really does. And, I thank you for sending love and compassion to the victim within us. And I know that when we're in those circumstances, those experiences, and we are experiencing the victim, it's not an easy space to be. And yet one of my most profound experiences happened when I was 19, and I had just been in an incident with my boyfriend at the time, and I went running down to a school and I was crying, and then all of a sudden I heard a voice and it said, "Where's the camera's Bliss?" Where's the camera's Bliss? So forward. She's always forward wonder. And I immediately knew exactly what she was talking about. I think it's me. I don't know how yet, but I had grown up watching soap operas with my grandmother. And so I immediately understood in that moment that I was unconsciously perpetuating a pattern that had begun at some point, and that by staying with this person, I was perpetuating that pattern. And so it was really profound for me, because in that moment, I was a victim. I had been in a situation that created the victim, recreated the victim energy within me. And yet what I love about that moment is it helped me remember that I actually have the power to step out of my victim and to cancel and to clear and to pause those patterns that were recreating the victim in me. And so whenever I catch myself being in victim, like you mentioned, for me now, it's like wow, what a beautiful gift that there's something within me that is being revealed. It's literally like tapping me going, hey, there's energy or frequency within me that is not of source, that is not of divine love and light. It is looking to be transformed and returned back to love. And so for me, I kind of like, now my victim to me is like such a blessing, because I'm like, there's always work. There's always work.
And right? That's, yes, like that's it, right? To get to have this experience, to get to feel it. And there was a moment in my evolution where emotions literally shut off, and not like a numbing, but they literally just shut off. I had gotten to a place and I asked for them back. I was like, no, how will I feel? How will I experience this? So I feel like it was my way of reminding myself how important this is, how important it is that you are feeling, because I know if you've been through a lot of pain and a lot of experiences in your life, that sounds like a beautiful thing. But for me, once I arrived there, it was like, well, but then no. And the beauty of our life experience, how designed in my understanding of it and in my journey, everything, the soul uses everything you've ever been. And even like those moments that you felt the most shame or the most regret, like what was really in that. It's just miraculous, this journey we're on, becoming the fullest expressions of our cosmic species as you define it. And, for me, getting to peer and get to see, into the creator levels and getting to see the possibilities that are here and the honoring of it. It's such, what they say, like the eye of the needle. That like, oh, and we have to meet right there, meet in that place right there. And we're doing it. I feel that. I feel how powerful this is, that we're evolving there. So I would love to open the space here for any last thoughts or any messages that you have for those that are taking that initiative to open up, to put their divinity into action.
I think one of the most important things is to really walk the path of oneness. And so I think that a lot of people have a intellectual understanding of what oneness is, that we are all one. And what can happen is we can so easily get stuck into separation, and it's illusion. It's all an illusion, right? And so I think it was Lorcan, again, one of my teachers, he would say, how many people are having this conversation right now? And there's only one. There's only ever one. And so just to really, really be aware of that separation mentality where we start to think that it is just us on this journey. And while it may not seem like anyone around you understands what you're going through, and that's where just tapping into the star seed frequency just helps give us a reference for what it is that we're going through. And just to know that there are millions of people that are going through the same experience, and then condensing it down into it can only be your solo journey. No one else can do it for you. And so it is very much an internal process of transformation, and that can feel lonely at times, especially if the people around you haven't accessed their starseed awakening energy. And so, I think more than anything is just to always remember that there is only one, and that is all of us, all sentient beings in all dimensions, and that we are all participating in this beautiful experience, having our own unique individual expressions of the whole. And then no matter what it is that we're going through, you never need to feel actually alone, that we are always one.
Oh, I feel that. I feel that so deeply and richly through your voice, through this time that we've been together. And and I just feel that vibration of, accountability and responsibility when we realize that we are one, how we show up for each other,
Truly.
How we engage in our lives. So just anchoring everything back into this now. I feel like we've been on an incredible journey together. So thank you. Thank you for being here with us and sharing your heart and sharing your wisdom and your truth. Oh, may you all really rest into and feel all that's here for us through this conversation and going on. I sense that this is opening quite a bit for many. So much love to you, Bliss, and
Thank
to
you.
everyone listening.
It's been such a delight. Thank you so much.
Bye for now. Oh, beautiful hearts, let's take a moment here to breathe into yet another powerful message from our Divinity in Action alchemical movement. I hope you found the teaching shared in this episode to be enlightening and empowering. Also, that you will take space for yourself to work with what was offered for your discovery and growth. Once again, I invite you to unlock your divinity through the wisdom of our speakers and to harness this beautiful energy to your benefit that will increase abundance, clarity, and freedom in every aspect of your life. By experiencing divinity in action, we will break free from past programming and conditioning and fully embody our true selves.